Red Script Studio presents Living Vicariously in the Trauma That Binds series. Delving in to Dan Gindlesperger. Caution. The Trauma That Binds series contains mature subject matter that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, Podcast Nation, and welcome back to another episode of the Trauma That Binds series. Today we have the privilege of talking with Dan Gindlesperger, author of The Demon's Secret. Dan is going to share with us his journey into self-development and his career as an author. So just one moment while I get Dan on the line.
Hello there.
Hi, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Dan. How's it going today? Not bad. Yourself?
It's going well.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it, my friend. I'm so glad we finally got to get together finally. I do apologize about those couple of reschedules there, but hey, we're here now.
No worries. I was trying to get you to work on my laptop. But then my phone rang without my laptop ringing over Messenger, which is weird.
Oh.
So I will be on my phone.
Oh, well, I apologize about that, Dan.
No worries. No worries.
All right. Well, that's perfect. Thank you. How about we just kind of start off with you telling the listeners kind of how we got together there, your kind of background, what started you as an author?
That sounds good so far. So as far as being an author, I've written through my whole life a lot of poems, a lot of stuff. And a couple of years back, I just decided I wanted to actually do something that I could put out there, that I could publish, I could share with the world. So I started with 2 books in a crime series that I love the books. Of course, you know, being an independent author, sales are not. If you're an independent author out there and you're doing that for the sales, you're probably not going to get what you want. And then came The Demon's Secret. And this book I just love. It came out of the idea, because I love horror. I'm a huge horror fan. When you see all the movies with demons possessing people, why do they do it? What is the outcome? You know, if you love horror and you've watched all the same movies I am, I'm sure that's where it comes down to is why are they doing what they're doing? So I came up with an idea and took about 6 months to get it to where I could actually publish it.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly kind of almost how we kind of connected there is you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, Tim, I'm so and so. I got this book out now and I've got some experience in the trauma." And well, in a previous conversation, you had mentioned that there was another book that you were kind of thinking of wanting to write, or a story you were wanting to write about pertaining to your trauma. Is that still something that you were or wanting to pursue?
It's something that's always in the back of my head. You know, when I saw your podcast or blog or what, I don't know what terminology they're using today, but I saw it on trauma and it resonated with me because there's a lot of people that deal with trauma on a daily basis. Excuse the birds in the background. They're hearing me talk to somebody and they want to talk to me.
That's okay. We'll try and reduce them in editing, Dan. It's okay.
All right. So I saw it was on trauma, and then I read a little bit more about what you do, and it really struck a note with me. You know, because there are a lot of people out there that go through a lot of trauma, and there's all different types of trauma, right? But people I talk to, a lot of them are they're either afraid to talk about it or they're embarrassed about it. And that's the only true way you can relieve some of the symptoms of trauma, right? Is by going through the process of discussing it and understanding how it affected you. So when I thought about a book, and it's still in the back of my mind all the time, I think about writing the story, hoping that it'll reach out to more people and help them better understand the trauma they've been through. The problem, and the reason I started and stopped it 100 times, is because it's very difficult. I'm in my late 50s, and things that happened to me in my teenage years still affect me today emotionally. And I think it'll be that way till, you know, the day I'm no longer on this earth, because there are just things that happen in your life that you don't want to relive.
No, and exactly,
it's going to be done someday.
No, and you're exactly right. There are just some things that you just don't want to relive or go through again, and that's perfectly acceptable. And then there's also therapies and stuff that's able to help process through those types of traumas. And I was talking with Dante yesterday. He's somebody, just another guest there. And sorry, I completely forgot where I was going to go with that segue. But but yeah, man, like I researched you, I researched your book. I got hooked on the prologue to chapter, like the start of chapter one. And then you sent me the book, a free copy of the book. I was ecstatic about that. And no one's ever done that for me before. So I just want to say thank you again for that. I am enjoying it. I just got to chapter 5. I do apologize. I'm a little behind on it, but yeah,
No
no,
worries.
I just got past the Father Luke's first exorcism there. And yeah, that was intense.
It is, and as the book goes along, one of the important things I want in the book is comedy, humor in there. So as you go on, it's going to lighten up a lot with all the darkness, because to me, if you have you have characters that are going through, demonic possession, and people chasing them and trying to kill them, there has to be that human side to them, right? And a lot of people deal with bad situations through humor. So I thought that'd be a good way to incorporate a little lightness to the story and keep it moving forward, where people aren't just in a dark spot the entire story.
Well, and that's completely fair because exactly the stories that heavy need some kind of comic relief, right?
Oh yeah.
And
And the
is
comic relief is, I guarantee you're going to laugh through the story.
now, again with that same previous conversation, you also had mentioned it's being turned into an audiobook. How's that process going?
It's going extremely well. I got a 15-minute recap, because I don't know if you know anybody who's been through the process, but the way I'm doing it is with a royalty share. So we split any money that's made on the audio. And my producer is amazing. I sat for 2 days listening to auditions,
Yeah.
and this guy is amazing. So he sent me the first 15 minutes. I made little tweaks to it, but he's going to take care of it and then finish the book. And it takes a couple of months.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and how I couldn't remember how long how many words is your book again?
It's 82,000.
Okay, so it's around an 8-9 hour audiobook then.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know if you have seen. I also narrate audiobooks, so as I think I had told you, so it can take quite the lengthy amount of time, especially for that long of a book. Fortunately, my first one was an hour and a half, so it only took me about a week.
I have my first book, which was a novella, is out right now in Audible, and it is a 3.5 hour, which
Okay.
is not bad at all.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember the title of it. I can picture the cover. I can't remember the title.
yeah. It's No One Dies Today,
That's right.
Long Walk into the Black Hole, and there's the second book is out, No One Dies Today, Bleeding Out Through the Soul, and they're a crime series about a gentleman who's forced to become a killer for the mafia, and it almost has a noir kind of sense to it as you read through it.
Okay.
There's going to be a third book for that after I finish the second book for The Demon's Secret. And there's also a sci-fi I'm looking to start soon. But, as we pile things on our plate, sometimes you have to let something fall off to finish your plate.
Oh, and exactly, and that's kind of why my audiobook auditions have kind of taken a back seat because, as you've seen by my schedule, I'm completely booked for the month because of the podcast.
That is amazing, though.
It is.
I do. I love your podcast.
Oh, I thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. And it's folks like you that make this podcast. It makes it what it is. It makes it happen, right? And I appreciate it wholeheartedly. And I don't know if you saw, but I did make a post on my page, and I'm teaming up with my merchandise coordinator. We have the first round already in production, but as a thank you to guests like yourself, I'm getting her to make you guys some custom T-shirts from Red Script Studios.
That would be amazing.
So after we get the first round figured out, we'll get you on the second one, and yeah, we'll get your shipping address and send one out for you once it's ready.
That would be truly amazing.
Right? I think see, everybody appreciates a free T-shirt.
Oh, they do.
uh, so now with your experience in trauma in the writing, and as you said, I can't quite remember how you said it, but writing is a way of kind of coping with your traumas that you've experienced.
It does multiple things, right? Writing to me is a release. Everybody in any one of my books is related to somebody I've known in my life. Of course, I don't know anybody who's been an assassin, but the essence of the character and the name is from an old friend of mine named Tim,
Oh,
and
no
the
way.
killer is Tim. Yeah. As you read through The Demon's Secret, there's a character named Cornfed.
Okay.
You're gonna meet him, and I'm going to tell you this, and this is for your audience too. If you go to Las Vegas and you see a tattoo shop in South Las Vegas on Las Vegas Boulevard, and you walk in the door and ask for Cornfed, you will be there. It was amazing.
Okay.
But you take what you know, and then you put it into the storyline that you want. So the trauma, you can't put too much of that into the book without going over the edge, right? Like
Right.
I said, I want to write a book on my story, but I can't incorporate that in a fictional story as much as I want because I just don't think it'll fit right. Fiction is not, is not life. Life is ugly. Fiction, you want to have a happy ending. Sometimes we don't have a happy ending.
I guess
That makes sense.
it depends on your perspective of things as well, because I know there's been some decent. I don't know about wholeheartedly successful stories that weren't all that having a happy ending. I know all these TV shows prefer to have a happy ending, but there's all these dramas and whatnot. But but the thing is, at the same time, is everyone's got their own preference, and
Yeah.
it seems that you and I are pretty much on the same page when it comes to the humor, the writing style, and everything. And I just absolutely love the writing style and what you've already come out with so far. It's absolutely amazing.
My favorite author, the horror author. If you're going to read horror, and everybody points to Stephen King, no, you have to go to Clive Barker.
Clive Barker.
Clive Barker. It's more of a fantasy horror, and the problem is, like to me, after you read Clive Barker, King seems kind of boring. Clive Barker makes horror what it should be, disturbing. Read his books, and you're disturbed by some of the stuff he writes.
So would that
You've
be?
never read.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask if it'd be kind of like on lines of like Insidious type of like the Insidious movies, that
Um,
type of style of horror is Clive Baker, or
it's more of a fantasy stuff. You have
okay,
to read it.
yeah, no,
If
that's
you've never read, start with Weave World,
okay.
and it's an amazing book. And like I said, if you've never read Clive Barker, anybody who loves horror, if you're not reading Clive Barker, you don't know horror yet. Once you read it, you're going to shake your head and wonder what you read.
Well, that's perfect. Well, I'm sure everybody's gonna look up Clive Barker after this episode's published.
So my writing stuff, he doesn't put the humor in it, but the way he explains, the way you can picture things in your mind, that's what I'm trying to get that essence. And it's so difficult because, you're trying to imitate your heroes and you really can't.
Well, you don't have to imitate them per se. You can just pick out what you like about them and hopefully try to incorporate it into your own work. Like I know when I started doing audiobooks, one of the narrators that I listen to most is RC Bray, as you know, and I try to get my audio quality to match his as best as I can. And I know with our conversations as well, another author that we actually both like and listen to and read is Craig Alanson. So,
Craig is amazing.
right?
I have I have a Mr. Nuki tattoo.
No way.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
So you have Craig Alanson working with RC Bray. It's just magic. It really is.
Oh,
I've listened to this series multiple times.
and the thing is when I was going through it and the which one was it? With the drama one had everybody, they had a whole cast on it. I can't remember the title of it.
Yes. Oh, it's book 3.5.
Yeah, basically. And it took me a while to kind of get into that one on for a little bit. So I kind of skipped it. I stuck with the main kind of plot things, and then once I had the credit at the time, because I wasn't producing, I couldn't fathom spending X amount on just a 6-hour book like that. So I was just like, well, I'll just wait for the credit. And honestly, I kicked myself after I listened to it because I was like, well, shit, this was so good. I can't believe I just skipped it.
The only weird part of it is it's not all RC.
But what I really loved, is that Kate Mulgrew was Negatha.
That was amazing.
That made my friggin' day when I saw that. When I heard that, I should say.
The series is amazing. It really is. They did something like that for God, trying to think of the book now. I'll think of it later and send it to you. There's a book, World War Z.
Okay, yep.
If you've ever read it, great book. But when they did the audio to it, they hired, since the main character is interviewing all these different people after the war, they hired different actors to play every part to do the voice for the books.
Okay.
So I mean, it's just amazing. Nothing compared to the movie. If you've ever seen the movie,
I've seen the movie. Yes, I haven't listened to or heard or read the book.
So there is one line in the book that's actually in the movie. They're completely different, because the book is about somebody interviewing all these people after the zombie war.
Right.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. It really is.
See, and that's kind of the one thing I don't like about film production in a way, is like you can have this great story, and then they get a hold of it, and they just completely change it. Like, yes, I can understand that they need to be able to adapt it to film, but at the same time, people appreciate when it sticks true to the book because they've read the book.
It's like this is kind of a weird way to look at it, but if you look at the Star Wars movies, especially the last three, there have been years of canon created by fans. I mean, it's the fan fiction that has created canon for the world, and they threw it away for the last three movies. To me, it was just ridiculous. You want to incorporate everything.
I mean, that's fair too. And but I have a love-hate relationship with the Star Wars universe now. Like, there's some movies that I really like that people really hated, and kind of vice versa. I don't even think I saw Rogue One, right?
You really don't need to,
right? Like the one.
But remember when people love Empire, right?
Yeah.
People love Empire, and when Empire came out, everybody hated it. It wasn't the now everybody, it's their favorite movie. But at the time when it came out, people were not in love with it.
Well, and then didn't George Lucas think Last Hope was going to flop when he produced that?
Yeah, first one. It is an amazing movie.
Oh, it's all of them were like the originals, and then the next three that came out,
the prequels.
Yeah, and again, when it comes to the newer ones, which the Rise of the Skywalker and the whatever the other ones are, those ones I didn't mind. There was obviously some I just kind of watched them because they were Star Wars, but the one spinoff that everybody kind of picked on was the Han Solo movie.
Wasn't bad.
I thought it was really good. I thought it stayed true to Han Solo in the Star Wars universe.
No, it was good.
Right?
The one that killed me was the Kenobi.
Oh, you didn't
I watched the first episode and I was like, no.
Oh, well, really?
So they made Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of a wimp in the beginning. He's hiding out, he's running away from people. I'm like, no, he's a Jedi. He's a Jedi master. Why is he running from people? Why is he hiding?
Yes and no. He's also been in exile for X amount of years at the same time. So he's lost that ability. He's taken away his own ability to stay with the Force, to stay away from the dark side, to keep hidden. So he keeps Luke and Leia safe.
I just wanted to see him go out there and just be a Jedi master. You know what I mean? We all have different expectations for.
No, exactly. And I think everybody kind of expected that. That was the main backlash to that is, oh, why isn't Kenobi fighting back the way he was in the movies? It's just like, well, I can see that at the same time, but again, I also see the other side of it. It's just he's been in exile. He doesn't have full grip of his powers. He hasn't used his own powers for X amount of years, right? So he's rusty. He's got to shake the lid off, right?
If you believe that, that's we recently, me and the family went to Disneyland, and I got to do the building a lightsaber experience.
Yes. You told me you were going to Disneyland. I saw some of the photos there, but I didn't see the lightsaber you built. How was that? It's an experience. You go in, and there's a whole storyline behind building it. It's fun. If you're a Star Wars nerd, you should do it. You really should. I mean, when I was going through the ride where you're on the Millennium Falcon, and I was walking through the hallways, rubbing the walls when I'm on the Falcon. So no,
it was amazing.
And you took your daughter out there?
Daughters. I have two daughters.
Nice.
9 and a 13. Like in The Demon's Secret, I mean, if you read the book, it can be graphic, but nothing I write is pornographic. Nothing is over the edge. I think my teenage daughter should be able to read whatever I write. You know what I mean?
No, and that's
Because
completely
it's
fair.
important to me that they can share it. And there's stuff that I know in the school library where she goes. She
Right.
brought home books, and I've sent them back. Going no. So there's that line between. I try to have that line built where this is good, but this is a little bit too much for her at her age and her development.
Right. So you're kind of strictly kind of sticking between the PG-13 kind of area, right?
All right, yes. And I'm sure other people have different, they have different lines in the sand. But these are my babies. I will do whatever I can to protect them.
Well, and that's our job as parents, right? We do anything we can to protect them.
Oh yes. And mine get a little spoiled at times. The whole idea is I want them to have things that I didn't have as a child. We didn't have money. We just drunk and out of work, mother and stepfather. So you didn't have things. Food was a challenge at times. And that's part of the whole trauma in my youth is things that my kids will never understand. And me and my wife talked about it. I'm going to talk to them about everything one day when I feel they're ready. But things that most people take for granted, you don't have. And it really, you can stand there all day long. And when I was a kid, I'd smile, I'd joke a lot, I'd do a lot of that kind of stuff. But the underlying trauma, you don't understand how long that's going to last. And that's why you have to talk through stuff like that. I found this amazing psychiatrist, amazing, because I have arthritis in my neck and my back, and I'd gone to a pain management center, and they sent me to a psychiatrist because they would not give me pain medication unless I went through a process. And this guy was just, he worked with me to get off. I had 20 years of panic attacks. He worked with me so I was no longer taking medication for the panic attacks, and I was able to even stop medication for any pain by understanding the way it worked, how pain affects your body, and how much of it is mental. But he walked me through, and it was like almost like the movies you see. My first visit, I sat down with him, and nobody talked much. He was just, and then I opened up to him once I felt comfortable. And the first day I was there, and tell you this story, the first day I was sitting in the waiting room for him, this guy walks out of his office, blubbering, tears pouring down his eyes. I mean, he was a mess. And I kind of smirked. I said to myself, what kind of guy is this? Who walks out of there? I mean, who is like that? Be a man. And 2 weeks later, I was that guy. I had tears rolling. I had snot coming out of my face. I was crying harder than I've ever cried because I was understanding the pain I went through that I kept in my subconscious that I always hid away. And that's how I was able to get away from panic attacks, to understand why this was happening and heal myself with his help. It was an amazing process. It really was. If anybody has that kind of panic attacks from trauma, you just find the right guy. The counselors I went to for panic attacks, they just fed me pills. That's all they did. Here, take these drugs. And it hid the underlying problems by just medicating me. It didn't solve anything. So we were working on going through this entire process, and it was hard. It really was. But it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. So if, like I said, anybody out there who has these kind of problems, you got to find the right person. You got to talk through it. You got to understand where the pain's coming from, and you're going to have to relive it again. But you're going to be so much better of a person afterwards. All right, that's my little rant.
No, that is, Dan, that's perfect. That is such amazing advice. And while you were talking, I remembered what I was going to say about Dante earlier in our session here. And with his situation, he didn't know things were that bad until he opened up to somebody. And because of our conversations that we had, he's actually trying to now set up a support group for people with PTSD just to come sit, talk, share their experiences, kind of like how we do this podcast. And he told me just as we finished recording yesterday, and I was still in shock because it's just like, wow, something I said, something I did actually helped, actually changed someone's view, someone's opinion. And it just started by talking to somebody.
I believe you started this trauma podcast, and there's not enough of this going on in the world. I truly believe that there are not enough people out there, and what you're doing, excuse my terminology, but it's God's work. You're getting people to talk about things that they need to talk about and share. As I said in the beginning of this, people are they're afraid to talk about it, they're embarrassed about it, or they just don't, they just want to hide it and they can't because they're not going to heal that way. So if you can get people to actually spend the time to communicate what's going on with them and maybe start that healing process, it's just truly amazing. It really is. It's going to be the toughest thing some people do in their life. Have to do it.
And that's exactly it. Like, I'm in the process of doing it myself. I have my first therapy set up for the 16th. Like, I have so much stuff that I have to process, and from my past, as well as I think you well know from, if you've listened to my previous episodes there, about my personal experiences. Again, it's just talking to somebody. That's what it is. That's all. That's the start, right?
Talking to somebody and being honest. I'm going to throw that in there because you have to be honest with yourself.
Yes, that's absolutely true. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to want it. You have to want it too. Like, if you don't want it, if you're kind of maybe feel like you're forced, that you feel like you have to do it, you're not gonna put in that effort that is going to make that change that you need.
Oh yeah, it's a journey. Nothing's going to be easy about it. Nothing's going to be fast. Once people understand it, then I mean, it makes it changed me to the point where, I mean, I had anger issues in the past. Anger issues calmed down, but the kids also help with that. When I have my daughters with me, I know that I have to be the cool guy, have to be the calm guy. But relationships, you when you go through a lot of trauma, you think that you're kind of broken. You might change yourself a little bit. You might try to be somebody you're not, and that again, that's no way to go through a relationship, because you're not only going to be miserable, but the people you're with is be miserable. So there's that huge importance of just being who you are, but being who you are, the best person you are, by learning how you can, get, or I can't say get over, but deal with trauma better.
No, I can respect that. That's a very astute observation. I appreciate that.
Someday I will write that book, but it won't be today.
Well, and maybe it doesn't. Well, Dan, it doesn't need to be today.
Well, I know.
Right? It doesn't need to be
See,
today. It doesn't need to be 10 weeks ago. It just, if you feel it needs to happen someday, it will happen someday.
It will. Just not. I just have to be in the right fit. I mean, just to write in general. I don't force myself to sit down and write. I write when I feel like it. And this is gonna be the same kind of journey where I'll need to just slowly piece it together.
Well, and exactly, and then something this heavy that you have to process, relive while writing, it can be very devastating. I don't know if you had listened to the one previous episode with Sheila Brill. She wrote a memoir with about her daughter, and that took her 7 years to write. Multiple trips of pulling out her hair after being done recording, and she was able to figure out what she needed from her family, and her family was able to help her through it, because every time she came out, she was distraught. She was distressed because she relived these moments, and she knew she couldn't continue doing that because it would just wreck her. So she herself, through doing this book, has gained that resilience and that know-how, and as well with the help with her family and the support of everybody around her, was able to complete that book. And Dan, once you start that book, you're going to have my utmost support for when you start writing it.
That is an amazing story. I know I'll have your support. I know I'll have the support of a few people.
Oh yeah.
It's just I was sitting down the other night thinking about it, where to start at, how to do it, and it just thinking about it gave me a little bit of stress. Your heart starts beating a little faster, you start sweating a little bit, because your body's reacting. You're having a reaction to a memory. The way our bodies works is amazing. But it stopped me for a minute. I'm like, do I really want to do this? And then I know that I have to. I don't have to do it for anybody else, but I have to do it.
Well, and that's the thing, right? As soon as you figure out if it's something that I need to do for myself, then the rest is history, because then you're just going to put in all the effort that you're going to need to make it happen. Like with this podcast, honestly, man, I didn't think I'd be talking to folks like you, published authors. I didn't think I'd be able to speak to Dante. He's a stand-up comedian, CEO of Golden Artist Entertainment out in Hollywood. He's been in the TV business and stand-up comedy for like 25 years. And if you told me maybe a couple of months ago that I'd be doing this, talking to you, talking to Don, talking to Sheila, talking to anybody I've come in contact with, I would have not believed you. I couldn't. There's absolutely no way. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't know that this could be a possibility. I didn't know. But with folks like you, your support and your very, very positive feedback, and the fact that you're on today with me shows that I am doing something worthwhile, and that the effort that I'm putting into this is just making it happen, right? So the more what you put into something, the more you get out of it, is what I've come to learn throughout this whole process of doing this cast.
What you're doing is important. I mean, I said it when we first started this. There's not enough people doing what you're doing. I don't think there ever will be. You're talking to people about events in their life. I mean, I love my book, and I'm here, to also push my book, because that I wrote it, spent 6 months of my life on it. But beyond that, I mean, you're talking to people trauma. Whoever's listening to this, they've been through this type of trauma. Some of them may not know what to do. Some of them may just be living there having panic attacks every day, like I was. So what you're doing is so important, because it's allowing people to understand they're not alone first. There are other people who've been through this. But not only that, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? I grew up, I've told you, extremely poor, dealt with probably the worst alcoholics I've ever seen. If you've watched a movie and show people being alcoholics, if you've lived that, it's 10 times, 100 times worse, right? But thanks to, and I'm going to say props to school music programs. That's where my focus went by the time I was in high school.
Okay.
I got high school, I focused on trumpet, French horn. I got a scholarship to go to college. It broke me out of the living in the poor, living with people, just because by the time I was 16, I was going from location to location because my parents were always in rehab. They'd get out and they'd get drunk again. So it gave me a solid standing at that point, because I had something that positive in my life, and it was music, simple as music. So all that energy was focused on that. And from going to college, I didn't finish college, but at least I went, right? I was able to understand a work ethic and be moderately successful in life. I'm not rich. I'm not famous yet. Give me time. But it gave me a foundation, because I had a skill that was amazing. Now, I haven't played music for years. I listen to music constantly, but I haven't played it for years. But it was that beginning, that something in my life that was so important to me at the time, that I focused that energy into it. I mean, as a senior in high school, I practiced 4 hours a day just to be better so I could get into college. So just school music programs. It didn't cost anything, right? The school even supplied the instruments, but I found something positive that I could move to. And that was just huge. It really was. I think that's kept me. My two best friends growing up, which were both older than me, have both OD'd in their life. And it kept me out of that mindset, out of that just go out and party all the time mindset.
No, and once you have a significant loss like that through something horrible, it can stop you from obviously following their footsteps and trying that type of, let's say, self-medication towards dealing with whatever traumas they were trying to cover up with what they were using, right? This is my condolences. I can empathize with your friends. My friend of mine in high school committed suicide by drug overdose. So again, it's just one of those things that I can empathize with you. Leave it at that.
I understand that, and I really do appreciate it. My thought pattern, I mean, these guys were in their 40s by the time, and they never changed. They never evolved. They made life choices that were just not good. And with everything else, I truly believe that they just did not make good choices. And I don't know, I don't know how they could have changed, but I know there's nothing I could have done to change them. So it's really weird.
Well, and the thing is you can only help out people so much until it's just like, well, I can't help you anymore. I apologize, type of thing, right?
I tell my kids, because they're learning to navigate social behaviors with other kids, and I always tell them that change is an internal process. If you have a friend that you don't like for some reason, they're not going to change for you. Change is internal to them and internal to you. So don't try to change other people. Just try to be the best person you can.
You're absolutely right, because exactly, you can't change what other people think about you, what other people are going to do. The only thing you can do is change how you react to it.
Exactly.
And so with these therapies, it's definitely has the therapy kind of helped you realize that as well, kind of with what you've processed?
Exactly. The therapy helps you make changes within yourself. And like the therapist I had, he spent time explaining things, why things were they were. He didn't tell me that I needed to do this or needed. He explained to me why things were the way they were and why I was thinking about things the way I was thinking about them. And when we finally figured out the trigger point, it was just like I said, I was just a bubbling mess. But I needed to do that, right? He helped me through the process, but I needed that. I needed to go through it.
And when you started to go through it, obviously you just had that mindset to just go straight find your therapist that you needed and get it going. But some people have that hesitation or struggle or I don't know another synonym for it, but they just have an issue just starting out. Do you,
It's
what
a
pushed you to do it
it's a
to give them
fear.
some kind of help in that step direction there?
This was it was kind of a strange time. He said I have arthritis in my neck and my back, so I was going to the do pain management, which I don't do anymore. And they sent me to a psychiatrist because they would not do pain management this one location without talking to a psychiatrist about it to understand pain. And at the same time, Teresa had become pregnant. I was still suffering from panic attacks. The pain management specialist wanted to put me on a fentanyl patch, and she became pregnant. I'm like, no, I can't keep on taking these drugs, right? I couldn't use fentanyl because I didn't want a kid to be near it. I didn't want to keep on taking the medication to keep me from having panic attacks because I needed to stop having panic attacks. I didn't need to be medicated. So in my mind, when I started talking to the psychiatrist, that's where I was going with it. I was going to be a father. I needed to fix things internally to be the best father I could. That was the precipice I went over. That's the right term, to get to a place where I knew that I had to fix myself, but I couldn't do it myself. And that's where the psychiatrist came in, did such an amazing job. If Teresa wouldn't have been pregnant, I don't know if I would have gone the same direction.
See, and that's when I kind of think everything kind of happens for a reason, even though we may not know what that reason may be at the time,
Oh no, I agree.
right?
Everything
Like
does happen for a reason.
when I was talking with Tim Palmer, that Iraq War veteran, he's like, we come into people's lives for either a lesson or a blessing, and I'm just like, yep, I like that.
There's I have a friend who's who is a preacher.
Okay.
Um, I actually he knows the Bible backwards and forwards, and he actually gave me some help on some of the little stuff for the book. But I wanted to get him this mug that says, "Don't end up being the reason for one of my whatever you call it, your lessons in church kind of thing." It was funny.
See, and then you can turn it around on him. Don't make me angry. I'll kill you off in a character of my book.
Exactly, but he, an incredible guy, a good friend of mine. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't know if I haven't told him I would. But he used to, till he moved recently, volunteer at jails, prisons, preach.
Okay.
In his own free time, he would just go up there and he would talk to the inmates about God. And I thought that was just an amazingly selfless thing to do, right? And he's a really big guy, so I don't think you're worried about actually doing work in the prison system, which is out. But
See, and that is a good thing because you kind of see that on TV, but since it's being TV, you don't really think that's maybe a real thing because you hear stories on the news about how prisons are run and everything. So you confirming that someone actually does go to these prisons, talk to these inmates, and tries to help them. That's amazing.
it is an amazing thing, and some people are in prison because they need to be in prison. And as you said, I think some people are in prison because they need to be in there to refocus. Other people, they get out and they go back in. But I think it does help some people.
Unfortunately, here, Dan, we're kind of getting close to the end here. It's been such an amazing conversation. Again, I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to be on the podcast, and we've actually got to be able to record and get this done here. Now, what's next for you? Is there any more books coming up? I think you mentioned a couple there, but besides that personal trauma story that you were talking about, but there was second to The Demon's Secret and then a sci-fi. That sci-fi one was interesting. What one's that going to be about?
All right, so we have the Demon Secret, the second one coming out, which is going to be The Last Great Sin, and it's just going to turn the whole story sideways for a while. The sci-fi is going to be, and you've probably heard this story before, but it's going to be about an astronaut on the space station who gets sucked through a portal to another planet.
Okay.
And the reason they're doing that is because they're trying to learn everything they can about Earth because their planet's dying. Again, this story has been told before, just not the way I'm doing it.
Okay.
This is going to be the interesting part. Nobody steal this idea till I get the book out. The aliens are going to be more of a gelatinous kind of a creature. They're silicon based, and instead of having a central nervous system, they have the same kind of system that an octopus has, where they have multiple brains. So instead of having one brain, they have an essential nervous system. Their central nervous system is linking all their brains together. Thousands of micro brains.
Okay. What comes to mind is Odo from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the shapeshifter.
That very much so, very much.
Okay, that should be interesting.
I want to incorporate the fact, since they're built like that, if something gets damaged on them, lose intelligence. They don't get hurt, they don't feel pain, but they lose intelligence.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of far out there. And I have like 3 chapters done on that one. It's something I go back to every once in a while, and then I start working on something else. And I'm just touching that one every once in a while till the storyline is perfect.
Perfect. I'm glad that we got some more work to expect from you there. And I don't think I had asked the narrator you chose for Demon Secret. What's his name? Has he done other books before, or is this his first one?
I don't know. He must have, because I went through his auditions from other books he's done, and I'm trying to remember his last name. His first name is Michael. I just know him as Mike.
No, that's fine.
We talk every once in a while, go through the story. And when I found him, I sent him the book like I did to you, and he read it first before he agreed to do it. So I think that's what's going to make it. He enjoys the story, which is huge.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm glad Michael's kind of the same way as me when it comes to books, because I can be very particular. I have to connect with your book. I have to like your writing style. And as I told you, when I was reading it, I could hear Father Luke's voice in my head and just like that type of stuff, right? If I can do that, then I know that's the book for me, and I'm going to produce it as best I can for you. And I'm glad, Michael,
Right.
you found someone that does the same thing, and that's great.
It's Mike Howard.
Mike Howard. Okay.
It's kind of funny. You do this work, he does that work. I wanted to throw something at the book, so I was like, okay, I'm going to do the bartender's voice. He's got 3 lines in the book, and it's when they're singing karaoke. It's funny the whole time. So it took me an hour to do 3 sentences.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because they had to be perfect. I had to get it. I'm like, these guys, he's doing 82,000 words, and it takes me an hour to do like 30. That's crazy.
Oh, and my first audiobook that I did for Clint Lawrence, it took me an hour to do 10 minutes.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
That's
man.
got to be rough.
Well, and I didn't have my kind of dedicated space either. I was actually literally in my hallway on a fold-out table with my plug-and-play laptop, my laptop and a plug-and-play condenser microphone. I was still getting reverberations off the wall, so I had to drape blankets down and get soundproofing and this and that. And oh yeah, it was a big ordeal, but it took about a week to get it done. We got it done, and Clint loved it, which I was so glad for, because it was my first book. My heart would have sank if he didn't care for it.
See, you're in the same place I think a lot of us authors are in, right? We want to be Craig Alanson. We want to have that kind of notoriety, because he started out as an independent author, right?
Yep.
And he got in, or started working with Podium and RC Bray, and now he's doing his dream. He's just writing for a living. He doesn't have to have a real job. And I always felt it was the same way for something like you doing audio. If you could do that for a living, that would just be like the perfect place to be.
And that's kind of also why I was started doing audiobooks, was I was trying to transition and to find something that I could do at home. And I probably got through my second listen through the X-Force series, my second listen through the Conversion series, like about 600 hours in just to listening to audiobooks. And I was like, I think I could do this. Turns out I could.
Trade value. Yeah. Well, I will be contacting you for the next book series.
Well, Dan, you don't have to, but I do appreciate that and that's the one weird thing, kind of what really good thing about doing this podcast is most of the contacts I've made, like yourself, have been self-published authors, and it's just I've put out auditions and through ACX, and I almost got one for a Western, but got beat out by somebody that was just had that voice, right? Just was the author. His name is Jason B. Baker. He sent me a message. He's like, Tim, you were on the top of the list. However, I just heard this one. I just knew it was him. I was like, Jason, that's completely fair. That's what it is in this business. I'm glad you found somebody that's going to represent your book. But come to me next, you find or write something that you think I'd be suited for. And so at this point, and then with the other guests on the podcast, it's just waiting on manuscripts.
I think you'll get a lot more. Really do, dude.
Well, I appreciate that, Dan. Now, is the Demon Secret just on Amazon? Do you have your own website? Where can everybody find you here?
Demon Secret is currently on Amazon. I just expanded out the publication, so I'm dropping it off, or I'm dropping signed copies off at a few bookstores near me. But if you have a bookstore you go to, if they get their books from Ingram, they will be able to order it for you. Amazon's always just the easiest for me. And hopefully, in about a month, it'll be available in Audible, hopefully. If it takes more time, the one thing I talked to Michael about is I'm not in a hurry to get this on audio. I want it to be perfect. If it takes more time and we have to do a slow roll to get it just right, then that's fine. I'm not in this to make $1 million. I'm in this to present something that I created to the world that the world can enjoy. I mean, if you look at the book, if you buy something through a bookstore that they get from Ingram, I make 70 cents a copy. That's it. My book price on Amazon is very low because it's not about the money. It's about people enjoying what I wrote and it being affordable. The ebook is $3.99. I mean, you can't go much lower than that without breaking the bank completely.
So basically, you're just trying to offset the cost, and that's pretty much it. As long as it gets out there for people to read and enjoy, that's what matters.
Exactly.
That's awesome, Dan. That just shows what kind of person you are. It just shows kind of how amazing people could be. You just want to give out that content that you create, and that's just completely amazing, man. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
I think we're running out of things to talk about here, Dan.
I think we're running out of time, too.
Yeah, that as well. So how about we let you go, get back to writing whatever you're working on now, and then we'll touch base soon with the publication of this episode. And, well, just keep touch in general, Dan. I really enjoyed talking to you. I hope, again, we keep in touch as with not just the audiobooks, but I hope we can be friends now.
Oh, and please, you're talking about your other guest with his trauma thing he's putting together?
Yes.
Throw my name at him. I'd enjoy that. I'd be willing to sit in and share.
And you're based out in LA as well, right?
I'm in Washington. Well, if it's not online, then I wouldn't be able to make it down there. But but if he does an online thing, I'd be more than happy to share.
I'll definitely ask him about it because he does web seminars for like his business just to help out other actors, comics, and anybody else in the industry. So maybe once I talk to him next, I'll be like, hey, Dante, I was talking to my next guest named Dan, and he mentioned if you decide to throw up this support group on as a webinar of sorts, he'd love to join. So yeah, that's awesome. I'd definitely love to give him your name in there. And that's just the thing. If you were looking for something local, he's based out in Hollywood, right?
Yes, unfortunately. I grew up in Southern California. I would never move back.
Well, I can see why from the unfortunate stories that Dante had shared with me that he had been witness to, and I'm currently editing that episode, so that should be published next week. And then everybody will kind of see where Dante came from and just the amazing backstory he had and just the general amazing person he is, just like yourself.
Very cool. All right, you want to do your outro and we will talk again soon.
All right, my friend. We'll talk again soon. You have yourself a great night.
You too now.
Thanks. Bye now. And that was Dan, the Demon Secret Man. If you'd like to know more about Dan, you can find him on Amazon. Check out his books. Soon, he'll be on Audible as well. You can also find him on Facebook. This has been the Trauma That Binds series, delving in to Dan Gindlesperger. Production copyright 2024 by Tim Douglas, proprietor of Red Script Studios. If you love what we do, please support our cast by donating, becoming a patron, or by purchasing studio merchandise. Living Vicariously in the Trauma That Binds series is a non-profit division of Red Script Studios. If you have a story you would like shared, consider reaching out to the studio. We would love to connect. Until next time.